Can we talk a little bit about commemoration, because I think you were involved in a project looking at how 1916 was commemorated in 1966. And obviously it was commemorated, and this whole period was commemorated very differently than it is happening now. What's changed?
Oh, a lot of things have changed. I mean, 1966, I kind of see 1966 as farewell to the veterans, because a lot of those, 1916 was a young man's rebellion by and large. There was a remarkable number of those who took part in the rising still around. Or those who took part in the War of Independence, and you know, it was in many ways their last hurrah. I think the other thing that you get in 1966 to some extent was a healing of the divisions of the Civil War, because my understanding from comments, some people who were involved in it told me that some people spoke at the kind of Dublin Castle reception who mightn't have met or spoken for many years. So there are all those things going on. But 1966, the Mass does make a few gestures, a few references to the Great War, but the Great War does not feature in the commemorative cycle of those years. There is some references to the Parliamentary Party, but the Great War is pretty well missing. Great War 66, you know, 64, 66 in Britain, it's not on the same scale. It wasn't anything remotely on the same scale as now, even though, as I said, a lot of the veterans would still have been alive. I think various things have happened. I think commemoration has come to be seen as a much bigger thing than it was then. When that starts, I don't know. The bicentenary of the American War of Independence, American Revolution, I think is one. I mean, they really made a big deal of it over a whole year, but the whole thing has really taken off in a very different way since, as a mass event. I think what you've now got with all these digital media, with all these online archival resources, and I think it's great, is that everybody can become their own researcher, can study their own past, and there are a lot of people who are actually consciously checking on what their great uncle did or their great grandfather or whatever, and this has really fed into the event. A lot of what you got in '66 was still much more local and personal. I mean, if you look around the country, there were a lot of memorials, there were a lot of events going to a Republican plot in a you know, or the grave of somebody who might be in a rural parish or in various towns. That all happened, and I think we have to be aware of it. But it wasn't a time when people yet spoke openly about the fact that their grandfather fought in the Great War. I think that's really the big difference. And part of it was that, if you take the Somme as an example, the Somme had been appropriated by Ulster Unionism, ignoring the fact that a lot of Ulster nationalists had fought in the Great War. So I think it was a matter of just broadening the canvas and looking at who actually took part in the Great War. And once you start doing that, I think you then come to a different place.
And we're having this decade of commemorations, centenary commemorations of various different events that happened at that period. At the end of it, what do you want to see coming out of it?
I think the main thing I want to see is a number of long-term records. And by that I'm thinking of the military pensions files, I'm thinking of records of who fought in the Great War. I'm thinking of a whole series of those. In other words, I do want a permanent archival record that can be used and reflected on by people beyond the decade. I would also like people to get some idea of the complexity of what's going on, the complexity of the motivations of people who fought or didn't fight in one place or another. I mean, the idea that the men who went to the Great War and the men who fought, we'll say, in the War of Independence are completely distinct and groups at loggerheads, that just doesn't stack up. Some of them are actually the same men, some are brothers of one another. The reasons why people took part, particularly in the Great War, are pretty complex, and to say that they were all rip-roaring British imperialists would be an absolute insult to their memory.
Mary Daly, thank you very much.
Thank you.